The ship was quiet as it moved through the darkness of space. David Cole stood near the window of the observation deck. He watched the stars pass by like small white dots on a black canvas. In a few hours, he would stand before the most powerful beings in the galaxy. He was not sure if humanity was ready for this moment. But ready or not, the moment had come. David was 52 years old. He had gray hair at his temples and deep lines around his eyes. He had spent 30 years working in diplomacy. He had solved conflicts between nations on Earth. He had helped write the laws that united humanity under one government. But this was different. This was not about countries or politics. This was about the survival of the entire human race. The door behind him slid open. Emily Ross walked in. She was younger than David, maybe 40 years old. She had brown hair tied back in a simple ponytail. Her eyes were sharp and intelligent. She was the best language expert humanity had. She could speak 12 alien languages fluently. More importantly, she understood how aliens thought. "You should rest," Emily said. "Tomorrow will be long." David shook his head. "I cannot sleep. Too many thoughts." Emily stood beside him and looked out at the stars. "Do you know what the council will offer us?" "I have a guess," David said. "They will offer us protection, safety, a place under their wing. And in return, they will want everything we have." Emily nodded slowly. "The same thing they offered every other young species." "Yes, the same deal that turned proud civilizations into servants." They stood in silence for a moment. The stars continued to drift past the window. "Marcus thinks we should refuse," Emily said quietly. David smiled a little. Marcus Webb was their military advisor. He was a tall man with a scarred face and hard eyes. He had fought in 3 wars on Earth before the unification. He did not trust aliens. He did not trust anyone who held power over others. "Marcus thinks we should fight everyone," David said. "That is his nature. But he is not wrong," Emily replied. "If we accept the council's offer, we lose our freedom. If we refuse, they might destroy us." David turned away from the window. He looked at Emily with tired eyes. "Then we must find a third path. One they do not expect." The next morning, the human ship approached the council station. It was enormous. David had seen pictures, but the real thing was beyond imagination. The station was larger than Earth's moon. It was made of crystal and metal and light. Thousands of smaller ships moved around it like bees around the hive. This was the center of galactic civilization. This was where the rulers of 1,000 worlds made their decisions. The human ship docked at a small port on the edge of the station. A group of guards waited for them. The guards were tall creatures with 4 arms and gray skin. They did not speak. They simply gestured for the humans to follow. David walked at the front. Emily was on his right. Marcus was on his left. Behind them came a small group of assistants and aides. They carried no weapons. They wore simple black suits. They looked small and fragile compared to the aliens around them. The guards led them through long hallways made of white stone. The ceilings were high above them. Strange lights floated in the air, following them as they walked. David could feel eyes watching from the shadows. Other species. Other civilizations. All of them curious about the newcomers. Finally, they reached the council chamber. The doors were massive, made of some dark metal that seemed to absorb light. The guards pressed their hands against the surface, and the doors swung open without a sound. The chamber inside was vast. It was shaped like a circle, with 12 platforms rising high above the floor. On each platform sat a different creature. Some were tall and thin. Some were short and wide. Some glowed with inner light. Some seemed to be made of living stone. These were the lords of the council. The 12 most powerful beings in the known galaxy. David walked to the center of the chamber. His footsteps echoed in the silence. He stopped and looked up at the 12 lords. He tried to keep his face calm. He tried to hide the fear in his heart. One of the lords moved forward. He was made of pure light, shaped roughly like a human but taller and thinner. His voice came from everywhere at once, filling the chamber like wind through a canyon. "Humanity," the Lord said. "I am Ven. I speak for the Council. You have been summoned because you have achieved faster than light travel. This is a great achievement for a young species. We are impressed." David bowed his head slightly. "Thank you, High Lord. We are honored to stand before the Council." Ven's light flickered. It might have been amusement. It might have been contempt. You have been in space for less than 200 years. Your civilization is young. Your technology is primitive. Your military is weak. You are alone in a dangerous galaxy. David said nothing. He waited. "The Council offers you protection," Ven continued. "We offer you guidance. We offer you a place in our great family of civilizations. In return, you will provide resources from your colonies. You will send workers to serve in our stations. You will accept our governors to oversee your worlds. This is the standard agreement for new species." A holographic document appeared in the air before David. It was huge, filled with thousands of pages of text. David looked at it calmly, though his stomach turned. He could see phrases like resource tribute and population quotas and military restrictions. "This is a generous offer," Ven said. "Other species have waited centuries for such an invitation. You should be grateful." David looked at the document for a long moment. Then he looked up at Ven. "We are grateful for the Council's attention," David said carefully. "We ask for 3 days to review the terms of this agreement." 3 days? Another lord spoke, this one a creature of living stone. "You dare to make the Council wait?" "With respect," David replied. "This decision affects the future of our entire species. We wish to make sure we understand every detail." Ven raised a hand, silencing the Stone Lord. "Very well. 3 days. But know this, human. The galaxy is not kind to those who stand alone. Accept our protection, or face the darkness by yourself." David bowed again. "We understand." As he turned to leave, he felt the eyes of 12 ancient lords burning into his back. They were powerful. They were old. They had ruled the galaxy for 300 years. But David Cole was not afraid of power. He was not afraid of age. He was human, and humans did not kneel. The doors closed behind him, and David allowed himself one small breath of relief. The first meeting was over. The real battle was about to begin. The human ship left the Council station and moved to a safe distance. David called an emergency meeting in the main conference room. The room was not large, but it was filled with holographic screens showing the faces of leaders from across human space. Governors from distant colonies. Admirals from military outposts. Scientists from research stations. Everyone who mattered was watching. David stood at the head of the table. Emily sat to his right, scrolling through the Council's treaty on her tablet. Marcus stood against the wall with his arms crossed, his face dark with anger. "You all saw the offer," David said. "You all know what they want." "They want slaves," Marcus said bluntly. "They dress it up with pretty words like protection and guidance. But that is what it is, slavery." No one disagreed. A holographic image flickered to life at the far end of the table. It was Admiral Rachel Kim, commander of humanity's outer fleet. She was a small woman with short gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. "What happens if we refuse?" Rachel asked. Emily looked up from her tablet. "I studied every species that refused the Council in the past 300 years. There were 7 of them. 4 were destroyed completely. 2 were reduced to a handful of survivors living in hidden corners of the galaxy. 1 managed to escape, but they have been running ever since. The room fell silent. And if we accept? One of the governors asked. He was a young man named James Porter, responsible for one of humanity's largest colony worlds. Then we become like the Torvin, Emily replied. They were warriors once, proud and strong. They accepted council protection 200 years ago. Now they work in council factories and mines. Their culture is gone. Their spirit is broken. They exist, but they are not alive. Marcus pushed himself away from the wall. So our choices are death or slavery. I say we choose death. At least we die on our feet. There might be another way, David said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. The council is old, David continued. They have ruled for 300 years because no one has challenged them. They expect young species to be scared. They expect us to beg for their help. But what if we do not play their game? A new face appeared on one of the screens. She was a woman in her 60s with white hair and bright eyes. Her name was Sarah Mitchell, and she was the director of humanity's secret research program. Very few people knew she existed. Ambassador Cole asked me to share some information with you, Sarah said. What I am about to tell you is classified at the highest level. Until now, only 12 people in all of human space knew about this project. She pressed a button, and new images appeared on every screen. They showed blueprints, equations, test results, simulations. 2 years ago, Sarah explained, my team made a breakthrough. We developed a new type of faster-than-light engine. We call it the slip drive. It does not use the hyperspace lanes that the Council controls. It creates its own path through space. Admiral Kim leaned forward. You mean we could travel anywhere? Without using Council routes? Correct. With this technology, we could reach parts of the galaxy that no one has ever explored. We could build colonies that the Council cannot find. We could trade with species the Council has never contacted. Marcus was frowning. Why did we not know about this before? Because it was not ready, Sarah replied. And because we did not know if we would need it. Now we know. David stepped forward. There is more. Tell them about the shields. Sarah nodded. We also developed new defensive technology. Our scientists studied every Council weapon we could find information about. Plasma lances, gravity wells, even their psionic attacks. We do not have perfect defenses yet, but we have theories. We have prototypes. Given time, we can protect ourselves. The room was buzzing now. Fear was mixing with something else. Hope, maybe even excitement. Governor Porter spoke up again. This is incredible. But can we really stand against the Council? They have ruled the galaxy for centuries. We do not have to beat them, David said. We just have to survive. We build our own paths. We find our own allies. We grow stronger while they grow weaker. The Council is not one mind. It is 12 different species who do not truly trust each other. They stay together because it benefits them. If we show that there is another way, others might follow. Emily added, the Council has enemies too. Species they have pushed aside. Species they have forgotten. If we can reach them, if we can offer them partnership instead of subjugation, we might build something new. Marcus looked at David with new respect. You have been planning this. Not planning, David admitted. Hoping. Preparing for the worst while hoping for the best. Now the worst is here, and we are not as helpless as they think. Admiral Kim spoke from her ship at the edge of human space. What do you need from the military? Prepare for anything? David said. Scatter our ships. Hide our important assets. If this goes wrong, we need to be able to disappear fast. The council must not be able to destroy us in one strike. Kim nodded. It will be done. David looked around the room at all the faces watching him. These were the leaders of humanity. Scientists and soldiers. Builders and dreamers. They had come so far in such a short time. 200 years ago, they had been fighting each other on a single planet. Now they reached for the stars. I will not lie to you, David said. This is the most dangerous moment in human history. The council expects us to bow. If we do not bow, they will try to break us. Many people might die. Our colonies might burn. Everything we have built might be destroyed. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. But I believe in humanity. I believe that we are more than the council sees. They look at us and see a young species, weak and small. They do not see our courage. They do not see our creativity. They do not see the fire that burns in our hearts. His voice grew stronger. We did not survive ice ages and plagues and world wars by giving up. We did not reach the stars by accepting limits. We are humans. We push forward. We find a way. We never, ever kneel. The room was silent for a moment. Then Marcus began to clap. Slowly at first, then faster. Others joined in. On the screens, faces were nodding. Hands were raised. Governor Porter spoke for many when he said, "Tell the council whatever you need to tell them. We stand with you." David felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He had their support. Now he had to make it count. Emily, prepare a counteroffer. Something fair. Something reasonable. Something they will probably reject. Emily raised an eyebrow. If you know they will reject it, why bother? David smiled grimly. Because when we walk away, I want them to know it was their choice. I want them to remember that we offered peace, and they chose pride. He turned to face the window. The stars were still out there, billions of them, waiting to be explored. We have 3 days, David said. Let us make them count. The meeting ended, and humanity began to prepare for the greatest gamble in its history. Somewhere out there, the council lords sat on their thrones of power, confident that the humans would crawl back, begging for mercy. They were wrong. 3 days passed quickly. David spent most of that time working with Emily on the counteroffer. They wrote it carefully, choosing every word with precision. The offer had to be fair. It had to be reasonable. And most importantly, it had to show the council that humans were not afraid. Marcus spent those 3 days talking to Admiral Kim and the military commanders. Ships were moved to hidden locations. Supplies were stored in secret bases. Evacuation plans were created for every colony. If the council attacked, humanity would be ready to scatter and survive. Sarah Mitchell and her scientists worked around the clock. They finished 3 more slip drive prototypes. They ran hundreds of simulations on the shield technology. Everything was moving fast. Everything had to be perfect. On the morning of the 3rd day, David stood in front of the mirror in his quarters. He looked at his reflection. He saw a tired man with gray hair and worried eyes. But he also saw something else. He saw determination. Emily knocked on his door. It is time. They walked together to the docking bay. Marcus was already there, standing straight in his military uniform. Behind him were the same assistants and aides who had come before. They all looked nervous. They all looked brave. The human ship approached the council station once again. David watched it grow larger through the window. It was still impressive. It was still terrifying. But it did not scare him as much as before. The same guards met them at the dock. The same silent walk through the white hallways. The same floating lights following their steps. But David walked differently now. His back was straighter. His steps were more confident. The great doors opened, and they entered the council chamber once more. The 12 lords were waiting. High Lord Ven floated on his platform, his body glowing with bright light. The other lords watched from their thrones of stone and crystal and shadow. The chamber was silent, except for the sound of human footsteps. David walked to the center of the room and stopped. He looked up at Ven without fear. "Ambassador Cole," Ven said. His voice filled the chamber like thunder. "You have had 3 days to consider our generous offer. We assume you have come to accept." "We have considered your offer," David said calmly. "And we have a different proposal." Whispers rippled through the chamber. Some of the lords leaned forward. Others made sounds of disbelief. A different proposal? Ven's light flickered with something that might have been surprise. "How interesting. Speak then. Let us hear what the humans suggest." David gestured, and a holographic display appeared in the air. It showed the document Emily had prepared. "Humanity proposes a mutual alliance," David said. "Not protection, not subjugation. Partnership. Equal trade between our civilizations. Shared access to scientific knowledge. Military cooperation against common threats. No tribute. No governors. No restrictions on human development." The chamber exploded with noise. Several lords rose from their thrones. One of them, a creature made of living fire, actually laughed. The sound was like burning wood. "Equal partnership?" The Fire Lord said. "With primitives? This is a joke." "Silence," Ven commanded. The other lords settled back, but their anger was obvious. Ven floated closer to David, his light growing brighter. "Human, you do not seem to understand your situation. You are young. You are weak. You have existed for a fraction of the time the Council has ruled. What could you possibly offer that would make you our equals?" David did not back down. "I'm glad you asked." He gestured again, and the display changed. It showed the slip drive schematics. "This is a new, faster-than-light engine," David explained. "It does not require hyperspace lanes. It creates its own path through space. With this technology, we can travel anywhere in the galaxy. We can reach places your ships have never been." The lords studied the schematics with growing interest. Some of them clearly understood what they were seeing. Their expressions changed from contempt to concern. "We developed this in less than 2 years," David continued. "While you were fighting the same wars with the same weapons for centuries, we were inventing new ways to move through the stars." Emily stepped forward. "We have also analyzed your weapon systems. Your plasma lances. Your gravity wells. Your psionic attacks. We have theoretical defenses for all of them. Given time, we will have practical shields." "Impossible," another lord said. He was a tall creature with 6 eyes and scales covering his body. "You cannot adapt that quickly." "And yet we have," David replied. "That is what humans do. We adapt. We learn. We grow. Your ancestors conquered the galaxy thousands of years ago and then stopped moving forward. We have been in space for 200 years, and we have not stopped for a single day." Ven's light had grown very bright now. It was hard to look directly at him. "You threaten the Council?" "No," David said firmly. "We offer partnership. We want to work with you, not against you. We could explore new regions of space together. We could share technology that benefits everyone. We could build something greater than either of us could build alone." He paused and looked at each of the 12 lords in turn. "But we will not be slaves. We will not give up our freedom. We will not become like the Torvin or the others who accepted your protection and lost their souls. Humanity kneels to no one." The chamber fell silent. The lords looked at each other. Some seemed angry. Others seemed thoughtful. A few showed something that might have been respect. Finally, Ven spoke again. His voice was cold now, like ice cracking. You are bold, human. I will grant you that. But boldness is not the same as wisdom. Do you truly believe you can stand against the combined power of the Council? I believe we do not have to, David replied. I believe that fighting us would cost you more than you would gain. I believe that some of the species under your protection would see our success and wonder if they could do the same. I believe the Council is not as strong as it pretends to be. Several lords made sounds of outrage. One of them slammed a massive fist against his throne, but then raised a hand for silence. He floated there for a long moment, studying David with whatever senses beings of light possessed. You speak of things you do not understand, Ven said finally. The galaxy is full of dangers beyond your imagination. Species that would destroy you without thought. Forces that would consume your worlds like fire consumes dry grass. Only the Council has the power to protect against these threats. Then protect with us, not over us, David said. Make us allies, not servants. We are stronger together than apart. Ven's light pulsed slowly. The Council will discuss your proposal. Wait outside. David bowed his head slightly. We will wait. He turned and walked toward the doors. Emily and Marcus followed. As they reached the exit, Ven's voice echoed through the chamber one more time. Human, if we reject your proposal, what will you do? David stopped. He did not turn around. We will walk away, he said, and we will build our own future among the stars. The doors closed behind them, and they were alone in the white hallway. Emily let out a long breath. That was intense. You did well, Marcus said. It was the closest he ever came to giving compliments. David leaned against the wall and closed his eyes. His hands were shaking. He had just challenged the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Now they would find out if humanity's gamble would pay off. 6 hours passed. David and his team waited in a small chamber near the council hall. The room was bare, except for a few floating chairs and a window that looked out into space. No one brought them food or water. No one came to check on them. They were forgotten, or perhaps ignored. Emily sat in one corner, reading through files on her tablet. Marcus paced back and forth like a caged animal. David sat by the window and watched the stars. He thought about Earth. He thought about his wife, who had died 5 years ago. He thought about his son and his granddaughter, who were waiting for him back home. They are taking a long time, Emily said quietly. They are trying to make us nervous, Marcus replied. It is a common tactic. Make your enemy wait until they start to doubt themselves. Is it working? David asked. Marcus stopped pacing. He looked at David with steady eyes. Not on me. Finally, after what felt like forever, a guard appeared at the door. It gestured for them to follow. They walked back to the council chamber. The great doors swung open. Inside, the 12 lords were sitting on their thrones once again. The atmosphere felt different now. Heavier, more dangerous. David walked to the center of the room and waited. High Lord Ven floated forward. His light had changed color. It was darker now, more like red than white. When he spoke, his voice was colder than before. The council has discussed your proposal, Ven said. We reject it. David felt his heart sink, but he kept his face calm. May I ask why? Because it is insulting, Ven replied. You are a young species. You have achieved some small advances in technology, but that does not make you our equals. The Council has ruled the galaxy for 300 years. We have defeated empires you cannot imagine. We have survived threats that would destroy your species in an instant. You are nothing compared to us. Another lord spoke. He was one of the stone creatures, massive and slow-moving. Your proposal would set a dangerous example. If we accept equality with you, other species will demand the same. The order we have built would collapse. We cannot allow that. David nodded slowly. He had expected this. I understand. However, Ven continued, the Council recognizes that conflict with your species would be costly. Your new technologies are concerning. A war would waste resources we prefer to use elsewhere. He paused, and his light flickered in a pattern David could not read. Therefore, we offer a compromise. Reduced tribute. Limited oversight. A seat on our advisory board. You would have a voice in council matters, though no vote. Your colonies would remain mostly independent, though subject to certain restrictions. This is unprecedented. We have never offered such terms to any species before. Some of the other lords made sounds of displeasure. Clearly, they had argued against even this much. You should be grateful, the Stone Lord added. We are being generous. David looked at Emily. She gave him a small nod. He looked at Marcus. His friend's jaw was tight, but he nodded too. David turned back to the council. He took a deep breath. I, Lord Ven, honored lords of the council. We came here hoping for partnership. You offered servitude. We proposed equality. You have now offered us softer chains. He paused, making sure every lord was listening. Humanity must decline. The chamber erupted. Several lords rose from their thrones. The fire creature roared with anger. The stone creature slammed his fist so hard that cracks appeared in his platform. You dare? Ven's voice thundered through the chamber. You dare reject the council's generosity? We dare to remain free, David replied. His voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. We came here offering friendship. You see us as servants or enemies. There is no middle ground for you. So we choose to be neither. Then you choose isolation, Ven said. No trade with council species. No passage through our hyperspace lanes. No access to our technology or protection. We accept those terms, David said. You will be alone, another lord warned. The galaxy is dangerous. There are things out there that prey on the weak. We will take our chances. Ven floated closer. His light was so bright now that it hurt to look at him directly. You will regret this, human. In time, you will come crawling back to us, begging for the protection you rejected today. David met the High Lord's gaze without flinching. Humanity does not crawl. He turned his back on the council. It was something no representative had ever done before. The gesture was clear. He was dismissing them, treating them as equals who had failed to reach an agreement, not as masters who had been defied. Ambassador Cole, Ven called out. His voice shook with barely controlled anger. If you walk through those doors, there's no going back. The council will remember this insult for 1,000 years. David paused at the threshold. He looked over his shoulder at the 12 ancient lords sitting on their thrones of power. Then remember this too, he said. We offered peace. We offered partnership. We offered a better way. You chose pride instead. When the history of this galaxy is written, let it show that humanity tried to build bridges and the council burned them. He walked through the doors. Emily followed. Marcus was the last to leave. At the doorway, he stopped and looked back at the lords. My grandfather used to tell me something, Marcus said. He said that empires do not fall from the outside. They rot from within. They become so used to power that they forget how to earn it. They mistake fear for respect. And one day, they look around and realize that everyone has moved on without them. He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Enjoy your thrones. Lords, I wonder how long they will last. The doors closed behind them. The walk back to the ship was silent. David felt like he was moving through a dream. He had just changed the course of human history. He had defied the most powerful civilization in the galaxy. He had set humanity on a path toward either greatness or destruction. When they reached the ship, he finally allowed himself to breathe. "It is done," he said quietly. Emily nodded. "Now the hard part begins." "The hard part?" Marcus laughed. "You mean that was not hard?" "That was the easy part," Emily said. "Standing up to bullies always feels good. Now we have to survive the consequences." David moved to the window and watched the council station shrink as their ship pulled away. The massive structure grew smaller and smaller until it was just a dot among the stars. "Send a message to all human ships," David ordered. "We are leaving council space. Activate the emergency protocols. Scatter the fleet. Hide the colonies. What about our trade ships?" Emily asked. "Are people still in council territory? Bring them home. Every human ship, every human citizen. We are going dark." The message went out across human space. Ships that had been waiting nervously sprang into action. Colonies that had prepared for this moment began their evacuation procedures. The military moved to defensive positions, and somewhere in the great council chamber, 12 ancient lords sat in stunned silence, trying to understand what had just happened. A young species, barely 200 years in space, had looked at the rulers of the galaxy and said no. The universe would never be the same. 50 years later, the galaxy was a different place. The great council station still floated in the darkness of space, but it was quieter now. Many of the ships that once surrounded it had gone. Many of the species that once paid tribute had stopped coming. The center of galactic power was slowly becoming a forgotten relic. Inside the council chamber, only 10 lords remained. 2 thrones sat empty. The fire creature had died in a civil war with his own people. The stone lord had retreated to his home world and refused to return. The great council that had ruled for 300 years was crumbling. High Lord Ven was dead. He had faded away 20 years ago, his light finally dimming to nothing. In his place sat a younger being of light named Tassel. He was not as arrogant as Ven had been. He had grown up watching the council lose its grip on the galaxy. He understood that something had changed. Beyond the council's borders, humanity had built something remarkable. The slip drive technology had worked even better than expected. Human ships had explored regions of space that the council had never reached. They found new worlds, new resources, new possibilities. They built colonies on 100 planets. They grew strong in ways the council had never imagined. But humans did not keep their success for themselves. They shared it. When they found other species that had been ignored or forgotten by the council, they did not demand tribute. They did not impose their laws. They offered partnership, equal trade, mutual defense, a chance to grow together. They called it the Open Alliance. 40-7 species had joined in 50 years. Some were small and weak. Some were larger and stronger. But all of them were treated with respect. All of them had a voice. All of them prospered. David Cole had lived long enough to see the alliance take shape. He had served as its first leader for 15 years before retiring. He had spent his final days on a small farm on Earth, watching the sunset with his granddaughter on his knee. He had died peacefully, knowing that his gamble had paid off. His son, Michael, had continued his work. Michael had been a scientist, helping to spread human technology to the Alliance's members. He had died 10 years ago, still working until his final breath. Now a new generation carried the torch. Jessica Cole stood in the center of a familiar chamber. The council hall looked the same as it had in the old recordings, though somehow smaller. The 10 remaining lords watched her from their thrones. They looked tired. They looked old. They looked afraid. Jessica was 38 years old. She had her grandfather's gray eyes and her father's smile. She wore the simple black suit of an Alliance ambassador. Behind her stood 2 assistants, one human and one from a species called The Velen. The Velen was short and covered in soft blue fur. His people had been refugees when humans first found them. Now they were valued partners. Lord Tassel spoke first. His voice was softer than his predecessors, less like thunder and more like gentle wind. Ambassador Cole, your family name carries great weight in this chamber. It carries weight everywhere, Jessica replied. My grandfather taught us that names mean nothing without actions to support them. Tassel flickered with something that might have been sadness. He also taught you to defy us, to turn your back on the council. He taught me to stand for what is right. There is a difference. The chamber was quiet for a moment. The other lords shifted on their thrones. Some looked angry. Some looked defeated. A few looked almost hopeful. The Alliance has sent a message, Tassel said slowly. You offer us membership. After everything that happened between our peoples. After 50 years of separation. You offer us a place in your union. We do. Why? Jessica took a step forward. Because my grandfather did not fight you out of hatred. He fought because he believed in something better. He believed that all species deserve freedom. All civilizations deserve respect. He offered you partnership 50 years ago, and you rejected it. We are offering it again. Another lord spoke, a creature of shadows and whispers. You would welcome your enemies into your alliance? We have no enemies, Jessica said. We have potential friends we have not yet convinced. The council ruled through fear. The alliance grows through trust. That is the difference between us. Tassel leaned forward on his throne. And if we join, what happens to the council? To our traditions? To our way of life? That is for you to decide. We do not demand that you change. We do not impose our values. We simply ask that you treat others the way you wish to be treated. That you see partnership as more valuable than dominion. That you understand that strength comes from standing together, not from forcing others to kneel. The lords looked at each other. Centuries of habit and pride were fighting against the reality of their situation. The galaxy had moved on without them. The species they had once controlled now had other options. The power they had taken for granted was slipping through their fingers like water through sand. Finally, Tassel spoke again. We will consider your offer. We need time to discuss. Jessica nodded. Of course, but I hope you will not wait too long. The universe is changing quickly. Those who adapt will flourish. Those who cling to the past will be left behind. She turned to leave, then stopped at the door. She thought of her grandfather, standing in this same spot 50 years ago. She thought of everything he had sacrificed. Everything he had built. My grandfather told me something before he died, she said. He said that the council looked at humanity and saw what we were. Small, young, weak. They did not see what we could become. She looked back at the 10 lords on their ancient thrones. We are giving you the same chance. Do not make the same mistake. Do not look at the alliance and see only what it is. See what it could become with your help. The doors opened, and Jessica Cole walked out of the council chamber. Behind her, the lords sat in silence. Some were angry. Some were confused. But a few, including Tassel, had a different look in their eyes. It was the look of beings who had just realized that the future might not be as dark as they had feared. Outside the station, Jessica returned to her ship. It was much larger than the vessel her grandfather had arrived in. It was built by human engineers and Velen designers and craftsmen from a dozen other species. It was a symbol of what the Alliance represented. Her assistant, a young human woman named Amy, was waiting for her. How did it go? Amy asked. Jessica smiled. They said they would think about it. Is that good? It is better than a no. 50 years ago, they would have laughed at us. Now they are afraid. And when the powerful become afraid, they start to listen. The ship pulled away from the council station. Through the window, Jessica could see the massive structure shrinking into the distance. It had once been the most important place in the galaxy. Now it was just another piece of history waiting to be forgotten or transformed. Amy stood beside her. "Do you think they will join?" "Some of them will," Jessica said. "Not all. Some are too proud. Some are too scared. But enough of them will see reason. And that is all we need." She thought about her grandfather again. She thought about that moment when he had turned his back on the council and walked away. He could not have known what would happen. He could not have been sure that humanity would survive. But he had believed. He had trusted in the spirit of his people. He had bet everything on the idea that humans would find a way, and they had. "He would be proud," Amy said quietly, as if reading her thoughts. Jessica nodded. Her eyes were wet, but she was smiling. "He always said that humanity's greatest strength was not our technology or our weapons. It was our ability to hope, to dream, to imagine something better, and then work to make it real." She pressed her hand against the window, looking out at the endless stars. The council thought we would crawl back to them. They thought we would fail without their protection. They thought the galaxy would crush us. Her smile grew wider. They forgot that humans do not give up. We push forward. We help each other. We build bridges instead of walls. And in the end, that is more powerful than all the fleets and weapons and ancient knowledge in the universe. The ship jumped to faster than light speed, leaving the council station far behind. Jessica Cole, granddaughter of the man who had walked away, was going home. And somewhere among the stars, the Open Alliance continued to grow, proving that humanity's greatest gamble had paid off in ways no one could have imagined. The council had expected them to crawl. Instead, they had learned to fly.